Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Gaming the System, the podcast where three intersectional feminists examine gaming and games through a feminist lens. Today, I'm your host, Alex, and I'm joined by Matt. Before we get started, if you want to support us, you can subscribe to our Patreon at patreon.com/gamingthesystem for some exclusive content. Or you can send us a one-off donation via PayPal to our email address wearegamingthesystem@gmail.com. Hello again, everybody, and welcome to Gaming the System. I've got Matt with me here today, and we are talking about the Olympic Games. So not your traditional video game, although there have been video games made of the Olympic Games. This is a type of gaming which very much has a lot to do with women in sport and, generally representation in sport and how that's changed, because there is the 33rd Olympiad 2024 Paris. It's been going since the 1920s. Don't know, we'll have to check on that, but it's been going on a long time, and women were not always a big feature of the Olympic Games. There's a lot of stories swirling around this year's Olympics in Paris. If you were to browse many of the leading sports reporting websites today, perhaps one of the stories that you'd come across is that of, the latest. Let's see. There's one here which might interest you, Matt. Paula Radcliffe apologises for wishing convicted rapist luck.
Jesus Christ.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God.
It is.
That sounds like satire.
Yes.
That sounds like something Have I Got News for You would say.
Indeed. It's quite a story. Basically, she's been on the radio, she said some things, and now she very much regrets saying some things. It's like what I was talking about in the previous episode. It's very much, I said some things and now I feel bad about that. Basically, the story that she's referring to, or what is happening, is there's been several stories on it, actually. I think you picked up
Matt
on it.
van den Velde.
That's correct. Yes, Matt
I actually know quite a lot about this.
So the Dutch Olympic team have a volleyball squad for the Paris Olympics, and somebody called Steven van der Velde.
Steven van der Velde.
Is it van der Velde or van der Velde? Anyway, he's Dutch, so who knows. Was named in the Netherlands beach volleyball squad. He's 29 years old and was sentenced to 4 years in prison after 2016, after pleading guilty to raping a 12-year-old British girl when he was 19. So he met his victim on Facebook. They travelled from Amsterdam to the UK, and unfortunately the rape occurred at an address in Milton Keynes. He's resumed his volleyball career after serving just 12 months of a 4-year sentence, and was selected in June for the Dutch Olympic team for Paris. Unwilling to specifically discuss another team's selection, this article I'm reading from is the Australian head of the team has said they would not pick a convicted rapist as an Olympian. So basically they're reacting to what the Dutch team have done and saying that this wouldn't happen with Australia. Quite right too, for any country really. Basically he's saying if an athlete or staff member had that conviction, they would not be allowed to be a member of our team. We have stringent policies on safeguarding within our team. So it's saying after his release, Van der Velde sought and received professional counselling. He demonstrated to those around him, privately and professionally, self-insight and reflection, and that comes from the Dutch Olympic Committee. So he's saying that he met the guidelines set by the Volleyball Federation and the organisation's guidelines integrity record, and the International Olympic Committee said the selection of athletes for the Games was the responsibility of individual committees. So really the fault lies with the Dutch Although you could argue the Olympic Committee could just ban him anyway. So his inclusion in the Games has been widely criticised by women's safety groups. What's Paula Radcliffe got to do with all of this? Well, let me continue on this wonderful journey. I shall read you what it says.
She's the one who shit herself doing the marathon,
That's
isn't
right.
she?
Yes. Yes.
And now that's that's the second most embarrassing thing she's ever done.
Yes, poor Paula. She said she was very sorry, quote, after wishing a convicted rapist competing at the Olympics, quote, the best of luck. So, building on what I've just told you, I will continue. She says, I'm mortified that I expressed it so badly and didn't condemn the rape out loud. So she's been in an interview with the radio station LBC on Wednesday. She said, I know that he's married now and has settled down. I think it's a tough thing to do to punish him twice if he's managed to successfully turn his life around after being sent to prison and to qualify and to be playing sport at the highest level. Then I actually wish him the best of luck. She referred to doping offenders being allowed to return to the sport after serving bans. In a series of posts on social media, BBC pundit Radcliffe apologised for her remarks. I do believe in second chances after serving punishment, but think the Olympics should be for those who uphold the ideals. That's why I poorly brought the doping comparison in. I myself am shocked and disappointed at how I expressed this so badly. I am very sorry and should have done much better. I by no means meant to overlook the crime and meant to say those who don't uphold ideals should be excluded, but can't be. I profoundly apologise and am deeply shocked and disappointed in myself and can't understand how I managed to convey it so badly. Any thoughts?
I think that's fair enough.
Yeah.
I think that's a good actual apology because 90% of people going, I regret that there was confusion as a result of my statement.
Yes.
She actually said, yeah, that was. So I think that's Paula Radcliffe. That doesn't matter. Mm-hmm. There are a billion pundits saying a billion different things. What matters is if having there's a podcast called Crime in Sports that did a 2-hour episode about him. Mm-hmm. And if you go any kind of this, like with any kind of sexual assault, they always go, oh, it was just a mistake off in the past, just a little thing. But then you look into the details of it and you see every single step along the way that is worse and worse and worse and worse. And the depth of that is you need to sit people down and go, right, this is what happened. It wasn't just, oh, I made a mistake, a youthful indiscretion. He groomed a 13-year-old girl, 12-year-old girl over Facebook in Milton Keynes, him in Netherlands.
Yeah.
Was it? In the Netherlands, Amsterdam. And he travelled from Amsterdam to Milton Keynes to rape this child. And that's one part of it where you go, you should read through that and realise, like, oh, it wasn't just I saw a girl across the room and thought she looked like she was 18 or 17 because he was 20 at the time, and went and said hello 19, and kissed her, and you go, oh my god, what am I doing? That's what they make it sound like he did. Whereas everything about this is it's horror upon horror upon horror. And if your what was it, their standards of like expectations and integrity, if your standards of integrity are met by someone who groomed a child, travelled across the continent to rape this child, if that meets your integrity standards, the integrity standards should change.
Yes.
And this is such a weird hill for them to die on because it's volleyball. He's a random volleyball player. And I agree in, like, there needs to be, the justice system does not work as well as it needs to.
No.
How it should be is you do something, you get a commensurate punishment, and then you can go on and live a life after that. But when you don't get that commensurate punishment, he spent, 2 years in a very comfortable...
1 year of a 4-year sentence.
Yeah, so in a very comfortable Dutch prison. And then comes out and then goes, right, he did the crime and has done the time. He hasn't done the time. If someone does the time, then I'm open to going, maybe we can have conversations about this, but probably not. Because I think that raping a child should probably ruin your life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It should probably take a massive amount of what you can do in your life off the table.
Yeah.
Because of it. And that's where the problem is. That's where because so much integrity is just bullshit. Because what is integrity in different countries is different. Yeah.
When you think about what the Olympics is and what it means, he's representing his country. What is that?
Is this what you want your country to be?
Yeah.
What everyone just look at your country. The only thing, every single time a Dutch athlete is on screen.
No wonder Holger Rune's pulled out for the tennis.
Oh God.
But he's not Dutch anyway. Hold on, let me check his nationality. Sorry, that might have been potentially he's Danish, not Dutch. They're in the area. But yeah.
Scandinavian.
Yeah. But that's probably not where he's pulled out. I think he said he had wrist pain again. But yeah, anyway, carry on, sorry I interrupted.
Yeah,
it's pretty bad, isn't it?
Ruin, yeah. Life, fair enough, because there are. It's so the way, how to describe it. The conversation about violence in society is never had in a way that will actually lead to the right change that need to happen, because no one ever says it's men being violent, because it's practically always a man committing violence. And then also, on the same count, it is almost always men committing sexual violence. And so the only way to have a meaningful conversation about it is to start with, why are men committing violence? Why are men committing sexual violence? And start from there. But no one in the patriarchy and the systems of power wants to have that conversation, because that's their power base. They say, oh, there are flaws with men when men are supposed to be the leaders of society. Then we can't have that. And I was researching crime statistics a while ago for my local area. And I think there are 5 or 6 different subcategories. And so there was theft, there was vandalism and stuff. And then in one subcategory, there was violence and sexual offences. When those can be two completely separate things. It doesn't have to be violent, like physically violent, for sexual assault to be a violent act. Because I would argue there's certainly an argument to be made. Someone who grabs a schoolgirl off the street into a van, molests them, and then kicks them out again, and someone who grooms a child, gets that child to think that they want what this person wants to do with them. The groomer is worse, I think, because there's no way for a child who has been grabbed off the street and put into a van to blame themselves for it. It's impossible. All they can do is, I shouldn't have been there at that time or whatever. But when you groom a child, you screw with their head. And then that has, on top of the trauma of the actual experience, the psychological damage that is done by being manipulated like that is an appalling thing. And I think it's a perfect like way to think of it is this is what the face of your country, you want that to be. That, and it highlights pretty much from the top to bottom of the system the sort of like normalized what extremes are normalized in the system right from the top to the bottom. And yeah, it's mad.
Yes, indeed. Now I'm going to bring in a different story because I mentioned in our previous episode the Twitter of it all. Comparisons have been made between this competitor being allowed to compete and the withdrawal of Charlotte Dujardin. Do you know much about Charlotte Dujardin, Matt? She is an equestrian for Team GB.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
A very well decorated equestrian. She's won a lot of medals in previous Olympic Games. She basically pulled out of the Olympics, but has also been suspended by various governing bodies while under investigation for a video that surfaced showing her whipping a horse while in training. As far as I understand it, it occurred about 2.5 years ago. And someone else is riding the horse, and she's in the paddock with the whip, and she whips it over 20 times to effectively, what it looks like, get it to learn the routine. But it looks very much in distress, and it's not an easy watch. If you don't, I wouldn't advise watching it, just because it's really distressing. But comparisons have been made saying, well, why is this person not allowed to compete and the rapist is? But that's the Twitter aspect, which I don't enjoy very much because you can't really compare the two. And frankly, they probably both shouldn't be competing. Well, obviously they both shouldn't be competing because animal cruelty and violence in sport should never be accepted either. And I think it's making people question whether horses should be involved in sporting competitions at all. I certainly don't really enjoy horse racing. I think it can be very cruel and inhumane. And if this whipping is the normal way of training horses in dressage, then I don't know, I just don't feel very comfortable with it. You get a feeling that it is happening even if no one is talking about it because it's a very elitist sport. One of the most elitist sports there is any horse-based sport, any equestrian sport, is going to be steeped in classism and elitist behaviour, which usually involves animal abuse of some kind. When we think, if it's anything like fox hunting, not to draw comparisons between the two, but you expect someone who likes fox hunting to have lots of horses and enjoy horse-based sport. So there's lots of questions being thrown up around that, and lots of people saying, oh, well, the person shouldn't have released the video now because it's ruined her Olympics career. It should have been after the Olympics. I don't know. I mean, it's happened. So, yeah.
There's so much to unpack here.
It's very messy.
Yeah. One comparison, so basically something, we boil it down to someone did something that has led to them having consequences for it. So that's where it's the same. There's the perhaps you can talk about it in a moment. You mentioned the difference between how animals and disabled people are treated on flights.
Yes.
So it seems like if he had hit a child 24 times with a whip, that's different to, so that's violence.
Yeah.
but sexual violence can't be. You can't.
You can't equate
Sometimes
that.
there's just violence, and sometimes there's sexual violence. So those two need to be splitted.
Yeah.
But it's a lot easier to go, oh, he just whipped a child, because that's got nothing to do with men. Anyone can whip someone. There's no gender. That can be passed off as, oh, it's just something that someone did. It has nothing to do with gender. So with this, if it's normal, then normal needs to change.
Yeah.
And people the most hated people by the establishment are whistleblowers, because they're the ones that show the things that the powerful don't want you to see the most. And so this kind of video is a whistleblowing thing.
It is.
Which is one of the most courageous actions that anyone can do. Because the people who they whistleblow against are always incredibly powerful. And they would rather, everything's fine, we're holding up our stands of integrity. And one of the important things about, even though all the downsides that social media has, the means of disseminating information has been seized by the people. So it's much, much, much harder for things like that to stay suppressed. And when they come out, it's a lot easier to go, oh, she did that, rather than, so 20 years ago, no one would have known that. It would have been her rosy reputation. She's great. And look at her. And as animal rights activists get more, then there'd be more propaganda going, look how well we treat our horses. They eat the best hay and we don't hit them at all. In fact, if you hit them with this stick, it's just more like prodding them and all that. So the treatment, I would argue that anything that you do to a horse or an animal isn't as important as what you do to a child or a human, because they couldn't be more different in terms of priority. You can't prioritize an animal over a human. And that needs to be the start of that kind of conversation. And it's just such a wild situation.
Yep. Yeah.
And yeah. Save me, Alex.
Okay.
I don't know what to say.
There is one more story I wanted to mention, and that relates to some events that are already taking place before the opening ceremony. So you've got things like rugby sevens, archery is happening today, handball's happening today, and also football. Football and rugby sevens started yesterday, and there was a match between Morocco and Argentina in the football, and it was marred by crowd trouble. Essentially, when Morocco went 2-1 up against Argentina, everyone was super excited, and then Argentina, it was assumed they'd scored a goal to level to go 2-2. And at that point, the Moroccan fans kicked off and lots of things were chucked into the pitch, bottles and such. And there was, disruption and uproar, and the match was suspended and everyone was told to leave and everyone left. And then the match was completed later with an empty stadium. But it's interesting how football is well known for violence amongst its crowds and rowdy atmospheres, and just generally very misogynistic, horrible places to be. If you're a fan, I'm not a football fan, but I get the impression that football crowds are not easy places to be if you are anything other than a hard white man who likes to support his team and punches everybody. But anyway, so the point I'm trying to make is this violence just because it's football, or are there other factors at play here?
I think football is like a step above in terms of, because it never happens at Wimbledon. I don't think it ever happens in rugby. It doesn't happen in cricket. There's just this very, very old dynamic between men supporting.
Well, I should mention it is a men's football match as well, because there are women's football matches. Sorry, I should have clarified. But yeah.
So that's a quintessential, like, toxic masculinity, like, environment where it's just as simple as men get angry and they do violent things about this thing. And there's the famous statistics that domestic violence cases go up when football teams lose.
Or win.
Or win.
When England
Either
plays in big tournaments, yeah. I think it's obviously a higher percentage when England lose, but when England win, it still goes up by more than what is the base level that exists already. So it's pretty awful, really.
It's just another place where the normal is so extreme. And in order to snap people out of it, it needs to be severely regulated. But these the football teams themselves, the corporations around it, should go, because they've got to there'll be hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of die-hard fans who they will be saying, we don't want your money, you're banned from the ground because of the way you behave. And it's just easier for them to go, just say, oh, they're just passionate. It's fine.
Yeah. I think they do ban sets of people who are literally just there to cause trouble, because people jump on it, don't they? They use football matches as an excuse to create more of a riot sometimes. But yeah, it's like you say, it is a good point that you make. Basically, this violence has become so normalised that nobody does anything about it. And it's the go on.
It's the cyclical nature of violence. Is a violent father teaches a son that violence is normal, and then that son passes that on to their son, and so it goes round and round and round. And we're in this generation where cycles, we're pejoratively called the therapy generation, because we're actually trying to break these cycles that have existed for generation after generation. And that's what it takes. It needs the football teams and corporations of the moment to go, football has this very old tradition of violence and aggression. We're going to choose to take whatever steps necessary to break that cycle, so that the idea of violence again in a football crowd is as unthinkable as it would be at Wimbledon or cricket or anything. Because that can be done. It's the same with violence in society. It needs to become an unthinkable thing to commit violence, rather than it being, it's a normal thing that men do.
Exactly that. Yes. Right, well, I think that rounds up all of the biggest stories in the lead up to the games themselves. Opening ceremony Friday evening. Very much looking forward to following my favourite sports and seeing all the nice things that sport has to offer. But I'm sure this won't be the end of the controversies that may or may not occur during Paris 2024. And there's definitely, obviously, an underbelly of controversy with every Olympic Games. But we don't have time to discuss that episode. So I'm sure maybe we could do a mid-Olympics pod or a Olympics review pod. It'd be really nice to do together. So I hope you enjoyed this episode exploring feminism in the sporting world and games of a sporting type rather than a video or virtual type for now. And we'll see you again next Thursday. Thank you for listening and watching. Bye.
Bye-bye.
We hope you enjoyed that episode of Gaming the System. If you want to support us, you can donate to us through our PayPal by sending it to wearegamingthesystem@gmail.com if you want to send us a one-off donation. If you want to donate to us monthly, you can subscribe to our Patreon at patreon.com/gamingthesystem. Until next time, bye-bye.